Hi, I'm George Pearson. In this Photoshop Elements video, we'll be taking this nice portrait here and giving her a creepy effect, just like this kind of a line portrait. We'll be doing this by using the displacement map technique or trick. Now if you like this video, make sure you click that like button. And of course, click on share and share with your friends on social media. Don't forget to hit subscribe and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss it on any videos in the future. And if you want to learn everything about Photoshop Elements and not just a few techniques I show in these YouTube videos, make sure you look at my complete training, and there's a link for that right down there in the description. Okay, let's get to it. We'll be using this photograph for the girl in the project, and you can download this from my materials page. You'll find a link for that, of course, in the description. Now I have this set up as a floating window, and this will be really useful in just a few steps. To make sure that you can do floating windows, go up to Edit, come down to Preferences and General, and make sure that Allow Floating Documents in Expert Mode is selected, and also double check that Enable Floating Document Window Docking is also checked as well. Then choose OK. Okay, let's go ahead and minimize that out of the way. Let's now make a new file. File, New, and then blank file. Now I have mine set for the default Photoshop Elements size, which is 6 by 4, 6 wide and 4 high at a resolution of 300. Choose OK. We can go ahead and dock that one. There we are. Now we need to put those lines in here, but the first thing we want to do is we want to convert this to black. So just make sure your black is your foreground color. Click on that little icon right there to double check that. Go to the paint bucket and then just fill that with black. Let's now make a new layer above that layer. We'll fill this layer with white. So let's invert those colors. Click on that little bent arrow right there. Invert the colors back to the paint bucket and click, and that layer is now white. This will be our lines layer. Now to do the line trick, it's real easy. Just go up here to Filter, come down to Filter Gallery, and in here you want to go to the Sketch section right there, and then come down to Halftone Pattern right here. Set the pattern type as line, set your size at 3, and your contrast at 50. That'll give you those real nice lines in there. Then just choose OK. So there's our lines. We now need to get rid of the black lines, leaving just the white lines. So I'll zoom in on this. That's good enough. Go to the Magic Wand tool. Tolerance can be set at 15. That's about the default. That's fine. Make sure the contiguous is not checked. If that's checked like that, just uncheck that. And then click in any of the black lines. All the black lines should now be selected, and then go up here to Edit and Cut. What that does is it cuts the black lines out. Now we're seeing the black background through the white lines. If I hide the black background, you can see there's the transparency. So now I have white lines on one layer and then a black background in behind that. Okay, let's go back to our fit screen. We're now ready with our lines. We can bring in our girl in here. Let's come down to the photo bench. She should still be there. There she is. Let's bring this up. Now here's where I want to have the floating window working. This way you can just grab the background layer and drag it onto your other file like that, and she's dropped in automatically. Now she should come in basically centered. That's about right. You can move around a bit if you want to. I'll go up just a little bit like this. So the bottom is lined up against the bottom of the picture. She's a little bit too large, you can see though. So I want to make sure that we're not going to be having any problems with this extra image outside there. To make this crop real easy, I'm just going to hide the girl's picture here and hide the lines. I'll come down to the background layer. There we go. Come down to the crop tool. Set this at no restriction. And then just pull the crop in like that. Now all you have to do is just grab the sides and pull them out until they snap onto the edges. There's the left edge. There's the right edge. There's the top, and there's the bottom, and choose OK. So that crops everything into that section. We can now take a look at our image, And also the image no longer goes past the edges in there. It goes right to those edges. So we clipped out that little bit of excess around those images, and that now fits that exactly. Okay, so far so good. We've brought it in our picture. We've made our lines. We've made sure everything is staying within our boundary, which is necessary here for this particular project. We now can work on the displacement map, which is what we'll be using to actually do the warping of the lines. This is the tricky part of this whole project. We'll do it in two different steps. The first step is to take this image here, this layer, and copy that to a new layer. We're going to now convert this layer to black and white. So go up here to Enhance, come down to Convert to Black and White. Now you want a fairly contrasty one, but that still shows some good shading. And it looks like Urban Snapshots is pretty good on that. Choose OK. We'll now push the contrast levels in here. And I'm doing everything right on this image. I'm not doing any adjustment layers on this at this point. You'll see why in just a little bit. So go up here to Enhance, come down to Adjust Lighting, and then Levels. In here, pull your blacks up to the right of the black, maybe just a little bit beyond that. Pull your whites in. You can see how I'm really punching up the contrast in here on the image. You can adjust your overall values here. Something kind of like that. So real contrasty. Not too much like this, although that would still work. But we want to have pretty contrasty. Now the reason for this is that the lines follow the lightness and the darkness. I want to have some real light spots, but I still want to retain some of my mid-tone levels, so I'm kind of playing with the light here. Go too far that it just washes out. So I want to still have my shape in there, but get the lights as light as possible. Looks like right around in here is pretty good. And same thing for the darks. You don't want to go too dark, but you want to make sure you get into the full dark range, which is right around in there. And again, on the mid-tones, go a little bit towards the right side, just a touch, so you have pretty good values in there. So my numbers here are 44 for the blacks, 0.85 for the midtones, and 227 for the highlights, and choose OK. Now for this trick to work, we need to soften this thing up a bit. We're going to be actually blurring this down a little bit. So go up to the Filter menu, come down to Blur, and Gaussian Blur right there. And that's pretty good. We still have some detail kind of in here. You can still see where the lips are. You can still see where the eyes are and the hair. But we don't have any of those fine details. They've all been blurred out. Let me just go back here to 0. So there's the 0 setting. And as I move this up, she gets more and more blurry. And you want to take it just about here. You can see she's still kind of like a photograph there, kind of like a soft photograph, not really blurry yet. Just when it goes into blurry, which is right about in there. And I think on this one, 12 is a pretty good number for that. That's where you want to take that to, where you're still kind of seeing the image, but it's really pretty blurry. Now, the reason for that is that softens down those transitions on the displacement map and gives you better looking lines. You can go a lot more blurry, but you won't have as much displacement on your displacement map, and it won't look as good. So it's kind of a toss-up on this. So I think for this one, 12, maybe even 13 or 14, maybe 14 is pretty good on that, and choose OK. So that takes care of that black part. Now, let's hide that layer for a bit. Come down here to Layer 2. We want to mask out this background here. So we'll do that with the lasso tool. Notice draw just a real fast lasso, real close into the hair, not touching the hair, but in pretty close. And just kind of come up and around like that, and then over around this side. Don't worry about those real fine hairs. They won't really help the image anyway. Across the bottom back to the beginning. There's our selection. Let's now go up to Select and come down to Refine Edge. Here's a refined edge. My tool is a bit too small. It's at 35. I'm going to bring this up a bit. I think 60 is pretty good. See, there's the tool. And then just paint right over that open space and let Photoshop Elements go in and refine that edge. Nice clean edge just like that. Just do that clear around. I like doing it in just little steps like this. That way if I'm not happy, I can just hit the undo button, or the undo step, and back up one step and make a little adjustment. So I kind of walk my way in that way. Okay, so that takes care of the refined edge. Now come down and output to new layer with layer mask. Choose OK. There's our new layer mask. Now this layer down here, we can just delete that layer. It's no longer necessary. Just go ahead and trash that one. So here's the layer. There's the lines in behind. Now on the layer mask here, hold the Alt key down and grab your layer mask. Make sure that you see that light blue outline. If you don't, double click on that to get the light blue outline. Hold the Alt key down, drag that straight up. That copies that layer mask up onto the black and white layer. Now if I show that one, there's the black and white layer, and again we're seeing that background through. That's just fine. Let's go ahead and hide the color layer, and I'll hide those layers, and I'll hide this background as well. Now I want to fill this area out here with black. We can't see that that's this layer mask. Now to do that, I don't want it clear like this, but I also don't want it, let me just disable this layer mask. I don't want it like that. I want it solid black out here. So to do that step, right click and then simplify layer. That combines the layer mask with the image. There's now just a clear background in here. Reset your colors to black for your background. Go to the paint bucket tool and just click out here someplace, and that's going to fill that part in with that black. Now up in here we have some of those hairs and things. So let's go over to the paintbrush. It's set on black, soft edge, that's fine. Then pick a nice size. Looks for this about 65 might be a good size for this. And then just paint in right up in here, right up next to her hair. It doesn't need to be perfect on this. You can go into the hair just a little bit, that's fine. And just take out this last little bit around the image. Again, this doesn't need to be perfect out here at this point. That will all take care of itself later on. And just work around and paint out that kind of a white outline out there. And it's, again, finish up as you go on down this edge here. And if you mess up a little bit on the hair, it doesn't really matter. So you can overlap a little bit into the hair. That's perfectly fine. Not going to be causing any problems at all. Okay, there it is. Looks pretty good. Smooth it out right there. Okay, that looks good. Now, we need to copy this layer out. So hold the Control key down, click on the icon right there. That selects the whole layer. Go up to Edit and Copy, and then just deselect. All right, let's make another file. File, New, Blank File. It should say Clipboard. Because we've copied something out of the clipboard, it should automatically say Clipboard up here. It should be the right size. This actually is the 4x6 size. Choose OK, and there's the new file. Now go up to Edit, Paste, and that pastes that one layer into this file. This will be our displacement map. We'll be using this to create the contour effect with the line layer. We'll see that in just a little bit here. Let's go ahead and save this file. So File and Save. And I'm going to save mine just as displacement map. I've already done a few down here. I'm going to call this one 3. You can name it or your number it if you want to. Really, any name is fine as long as you know what that's going to be. You can get back to that file again. And we're using displacement map 3. Choose Save. And now you can close this file down. We're done with that. We're also now done with this layer up here. You can go ahead and delete that layer as well. That can just go away. Then bring back in our layers. So far, so good. Now, we need to begin working on our line effect in here. Now the easy way to do this is just to go over here where it says layer copy to, this is your girl layer up here. Right click on the name and come down to create clipping mask. And what that does is it puts this image onto just the lines. Let me see if I can show you that. I'll zoom in a bit here. There we go. So the image is now just on the white lines. The transparent part is still showing the black lines in the background. That's all we've done. We've just put the image onto the white lines. We can now bend those lines around, come down here to our layer. This is our line layer, layer 1. And this is a layer that we use the displacement map trick on. And for that, go up to Filter, come down to Distort, and Displace right there. It's a fairly simple little dialog box. Horizontal scale, vertical scale. This doesn't matter because our displacement map is exactly the same size and proportions as the original file. So you can ignore those. The 10 and 10, these are the default settings. And they've always worked for me. I've never had to come in here and actually change those settings. This just shows how far it's going to be pushed off, and I found 10 by 10 works out fairly well for this. Choose OK, and it's going to ask you to choose a displacement map right here. This is where we use that file that we just made. So let's come down. I'll find that what's in here someplace. There it is right there, displacement map 3, one that we just saved. Choose Open, and there you go. You can see it takes the lines and then bends them around based upon that black and white image that we did. If I zoom in here, you can see that a bit better. There we go. It's just bending the images now based upon the lights and the darks on that original image. Now, we want to get rid of this white in the background out here. So we'll do that by going up to this layer, hold down the Alt key, and drag the layer mask down to layer 1. And that applies that layer mask onto layer 1, giving us just that black background. Okay, last couple things here to do. I want to work on the eyes in here and also bring the overall values down. Let's go ahead and zoom back out here to fit on screen. There we go. Let's take this layer and duplicate this layer just like that. On this one, notice how it's still clipped, still kind of brought in like that. Go over here on the name of that top layer now, right click and release clipping mask. That just puts it on its own layer up here. Now I want to have just the eyes showing in here. We have our layer mask, as you can see, already done. So to get rid of the face and just leave the eyes, we're going to paint black around here and just leave that open. I'll start off with the paintbrush here. 65 pixels and soft is pretty good. Maybe I'll go up to 100 pixels here just to make it a little bit faster. 100 px. Make sure you're on the layer mask side. Look for that light blue outline. And then if you paint black on that side, it just hides that. Now we're seeing the line version underneath. That's fine. Just come around and paint in so you're close to the eyes like that. And I'm just filling in on that layer mask. And bring this down close to the eyes. Okay, now let's zoom in further. There we go. Maybe a little further than that. That's pretty good. And let's go back to the paintbrush. Bring the size of the brush way down. Okay, that's at 15 pixels. That's pretty good. I can now come in with this and paint right up against the eyes just like that. And then just follow around just around the eyes. Again, what I'm doing is I'm painting black onto that layer mask, and that's hiding everything else. So I'm just leaving just the eyes themselves. We'll back up just a little bit here in a second and clean up the rest of that area around the eyes. But let's just get in this tight bit first. And again, just paint right around the eye like that. There we go. And take it out a little bit further. Looking pretty good. Let's now back out just a little bit. Grab my zoom control here and I'll back it up just a bit. I think that's enough. Back to the paintbrush. And I'll bring the brush size up now to about 30 or so. There we go. A little larger brush. And I can clean up all this other stuff in here now. So go to a small brush and zoom in tight to get the part right around the eyes, and you can then zoom out a bit with a larger brush to finish off everything else out here. So what we have then is we're looking at just the line version for the whole face and the hair, And this top version, we're only seeing just those eyes. Okay, now I'm going to back out just a little bit more. About there is pretty good. A couple things at this point that are left to do. First one is I want to bring down the saturation of the picture here, the face part of the image. We'll use a layer adjustment up here. So layer, new adjustment layer, and then hue saturation. Where it says use previous layer to create clipping mask, just check that, choose OK. And let's now back off on the saturation level on this just a little bit. You see, as I go left, I lose the saturation. I don't want to go clear to black and white like that, but I want to bring it down a bit. Maybe around 64, 65 in here someplace is pretty good. Now see a little bit up here of the full saturation showing through, a little bit right there as well. We'll clean that up in just a second. We're basically bringing down the saturation so that it's not black and white, but not really color any longer. It's kind of in between black and white and color. And then close that down. Let's go back up here to this top layer mask, back to our black paintbrush. And let me just double check those spots right in there where I'm seeing some color come through. Just a little touch up in there, a little touch up over in here. And I think I now have that whole thing pretty good. There we go. Okay, now let's work on her eyes, give the eyes that strange effect. So that's up on this top layer here. Again, an adjustment layer, so layer, new adjustment layer, hue saturation. And again, check that checkbox, choose OK. Now I want to do two things here. I want to bring up my saturation to make it oversaturated, and I want to change the color in here. So let's first do the saturation. I'll slide that to the right. See how it really pushes that saturation in there? I don't want to go too far. So let's take it up to about 41, 42, looks like 43. Right there is pretty good. So just increase the saturation a bit. Let's now give it a strange color shift. You can grab the hue slider and actually change the overall color in here to anything that you like. Now the one that I used was -134, which is right there, kind of a bluish tone. There's a little bit right here, a little bit of color showing through right there. Let me just fix that as well. But there's the saturation for the eyes. Let's close that down. Go back to that layer mask, and we're still on the black, so I can just come in here and just clean that little edge up right there, and that right in there. And that should do it. We should be pretty good. A little bit right here needs to be fixed. I'm just looking right now for anything kind of purplish showing, which I'll see or show if I have missed anywhere. I think I've gotten that pretty well. A little bit right over in there. Okay, let's now just back out just a little bit, go fit screen. There's our strange line portrait. Let me enlarge this, make it a bit easier to see. A couple of clicks, and there we go. So kind of an interesting, kind of spooky, eerie effect here on this portrait. The main thing I wanted to show on this one, though, was how to use that displacement map, making that grayscale layer and using that as a displacement map in that displace filter, which allows us to bend this line image around the contours of the face. It's actually bending it around the lights and the darks of the face, but the lights and the darks are showing us the contour. So it allows us to do that. Now, there are a lot of other techniques to use this for. For instance, put an animal face onto a person's face, or put a flag on a person's face, or a logo on a person's face. Same basic technique. This particular version here with the line, I think, shows you the best how this actually works. I'll do videos in the future with those other techniques, but I wanted to do this one first to really explain what this technique is doing and why it works and kind of the effect. And it also is kind of an interesting, strange portrait as well. So there you go. That's how to do this kind of an eerie, spooky line portrait using the displacement map tool. Don't forget to click on that like button for this video, and of course, even more important, click on that share button and share this video with your friends on social media. And if you really want to learn how to use Photoshop Elements, not just a few things that I've done here in this video, my other YouTube projects, you should get my complete training course, and you'll find a link for that also right down there in the description. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you found it useful. If you like this video, click on the like button below to let others know. You can click the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos in the future. I'm frequently uploading new training videos. Don't forget to check out my website at howtogurus.com.